Welcome to the Business Bravery podcast, inspiring stories from coaches and course creators to help you do the next brave thing in your business. Coming up on the Business Bravery podcast. So that's the brave things that I'm doing right now. It's like coming up with that new offer as a springboard to get people to try me out and get some results in those 30 days. I had a tape in the back of my mind that was, I'm not good enough. And, other people can have a business, but I'm not good enough to have one, and trying to do something new in my business. And it would be like walking through mud up to my waist. You'd think somebody with that kind of background, like I hear lots of people going, I didn't grow up in an entrepreneurial household and things like that. And that should have given me a leg up. But man, it actually, for whatever reason, just slowed me down even more, because if I didn't see the quick success that my parents had, I felt like I either had the wrong idea and I had to change, or I wasn't good enough and I was never going to make it. Which, when you start thinking those thoughts, it affects everything. Like, you don't put yourself out there. The times I've gone into launches where it's like, oh, I'm just going to try this and just have fun, those are the times when I get the best success. Like, that's when I created my own 5-figure 10K launch. It's one thing to say that you're going to be brave and you get the excitement. It's like, I'm going to do this next thing. I'm going to launch the podcast. I'm going to post consistently. I'm going to do the 5-figure launch, or I'm going to pivot my business, whatever that next brave thing is. We get excited, and then that excitement carries us through for the first couple of weeks, and we take those steps. It's exciting. And then there can be this little voice in the back of your head that's like, nobody seems to be really interacting with this. Not sure it's going to work. We should stop now. Sometimes it can be that. Sometimes there can just be the voice of, this looks like it might be harder than we thought. Maybe this isn't right for us. Maybe this isn't fully aligned. Oh, I've seen this. Maybe this isn't really fully aligned and we need to make some shifts. I've also done that one. I'm your host, Tiffany, an Australian business and launch coach with 10 years experience in online marketing. I help coaches to be brave so they can break through a dry spell and sign their next clients. I'm also the creator of the Brave Launch Framework. I coach, consult, and provide marketing services. Today, I'm talking to myself. That sounds weird, right? Basically, I decided to sit down and answer the same questions that I ask my guests. I'm always so grateful at how open and vulnerable my guests are, and I wanted to do the same. Fair warning, I'm a bit rusty at the solo podcast game and didn't really relax into it until later in the episode. This is me being brave and taking extremely imperfect action, and I'm posting it anyway. Stay tuned to discover stories of my business bravery, past, present, and future. Now, who's ready for some business bravery inspiration? Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the Business Bravery podcast. I am Tiffany from Tiffany G Studios. Today is going to be a solo podcast. I've already recorded a couple of these interviews with other amazing coaches, and I wanted the opportunity to answer these questions myself, partly because it's like, hey, I'd like you guys to get to know me as well. And I'd also like to be able to put in my perspective on these things. And I just think it's also kind of, I'm asking these questions and sometimes things go to a slightly more vulnerable place. And I think it's kind of fair if I'm sort of encouraging other coaches to be vulnerable that might be vulnerable too. Just to be straight up front, this is the second time I'm recording this. And if you hear this version, fingers crossed, it's all good. I'd love to say that was like a whole technical difficulty, but really it was all because I just babble on too much. I spent an hour talking. I got through my second question just because the second question usually goes back in time. And there was so many stories I wanted to tell. It's really funny. Even when I get on these calls with others, I am always surprised about how much people get once they get talking. It's just so easy to dive into various sections of their lives and things like that. I've always kind of thought of myself as a bit more introverted, and I do enjoy keeping the focus on other people more in conversations, and I was surprised at how sort of deep I started to go to. But the benefit of this being my podcast means I get to have a solo podcast whenever I want, and I can dive into those things when required. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be brave, and I'm going to trust that whatever gets said in this time is going to be the right amount of things for us to start getting to know each other. For those of you who don't know me, and for those who do know me a bit better, get to maybe hear some things that I don't talk about so much. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the same questions that I go through with my guests, and just see where we end up and see how far we get. Okay, let's dive in. So my first question usually is, tell us about your business. What brave things are you doing right now? Number one, recording this podcast. Number two, recording this solo podcast. That's really kind of the bravest things that I'm doing. I also have plans to do a masterclass coming up, and I'm kind of launching a new sort of mini intensive offer with me, which is kind of interesting. So for anybody who needs to know the background, I have kind of like a big 6-month container. People call them containers. I feel that's weird. I think of like ice cream in a container. Anyway, 6-month program to work with me, usually to where I help people with launching, and we go through my 5-figure launch framework. Now, the thing that I have found, I mean, like that has helped many of my clients. We have, launch group programs. They've made thousands of dollars. They get to repeat the process and keep using that system. They get to tailor it to themselves, all of that good stuff. What I have found recently too is that not everyone in my audience likes the idea of the 5-figure framework, but at the moment, I'm not changing that name of it. I want it to be an example of what's possible. Okay. And the best thing about my framework, because I've been doing online marketing for 10 years, I've been doing this stuff for a long time, and it's not one solution that fits everyone. It's a framework, and you get to choose how you mold it to you. The best part about that is it doesn't just have to be, we do a 5-figure launch and, you already have this engaged audience, and that's how that program works. And we turn followers into ideal clients and help you with the parts that you're missing. Or in most cases, we help you with the confidence so that you can show up as your most confident self, which makes you really magnetic and people can't wait to work with you, as well as working on those areas of the sales process and the information that people need in order to make that decision, all from a place where you're not like freaking out and going, what if nobody buys, and things like that. And you can show up confident and a little detached from the outcome and all of those good things that help encourage people to work with you. So that's the big program that I have. What I have found though is that I've had people coming to me who they're not ready to dive in for the 6 months. They're also not at a point where the 5-figure launch is something that is really working for them. It's not something that really compels them to say, yes, I need to work with you right now. However, we have ended up working together on kind of like the next step of their process in terms of getting those clients, and usually through doing some sort of online workshop and that kind of thing. Because of that, I'm creating something new, a smaller program, like a more intensive, kind of around 1 month. And just for those of you who are sitting there thinking, oh, should I be doing this? Should I not be doing this? Or something like that. The idea here is that for me, I'm doing it in a 30 days block where there's going to be 2 1-hour sessions with me. And if you sign up by a certain date, you can get a 3rd session. And in between, we have all of the support. I know most coaches do it over Voxer. I tend to end up doing my support through like IG Messenger or Facebook Messenger or something. That tends to be where my clients here in Australia are more comfortable. Not that I don't work with people overseas as well, who are also just a bit more comfortable there than having to download a new app, which can be a whole new thing and all that sort of stuff. I've also seen that intensives done, like my coach is doing it with some other clients of hers, and she's doing it herself, where it's like, hey, you get 1 hour with me, you pay about $300, and then you get one like 5 days of support through Voxer or something. So it can be done in other ways. The way I'm doing it is I'm wanting to help people with the consistency and doing that next brave step in this like little intensive package. It could be consistency around doing social media posting or getting on video or something. Like one of my recent clients who's come on board with this, and we're kind of doing things in she's actually doing more than just this intensive. We're working together for 3 months overall. It's around a price point of around $500 a month or something like that, because the plan is we're going to get her first 2 clients in her business. The price point that I have for the 5-figure launch framework, which is a whole 6-month package, and that's $1,000 per month, which is like $850 a month. It's just, it's just different, and it's at a point where I think just people are at in terms of where they're at with their money and that whole ability to get started. And those people who work with me for the 2 to 3 months to get those first couple of clients and, really get their business rolling in the beginning, those are the people who I am sure will either work with me again or will continue to work with me and that kind of thing, because I know the amazing value I bring, how much work I've done to get where I'm at the moment, that kind of thing. The reason that this is brave is because it's a new idea that I'm testing, and in some ways it's brave, and then in other ways it's like, hey, I'm just creating a new offer and I'm going to put it out into the world and see how it goes, and it may fall flat or it might not, we will see. But yeah, it's just showing up as that person who just really believes in their offer. And even though I'm doing it with one client already, which just came about naturally, and now it's turning around and going, hey, this is helping somebody else, I'm just wondering, is this something else that can help people? And the thing that I'm trying to work out is like, what's the masterclass going to be that's going to lead into this, me being able to talk about this offer? Because I'm kind of talking about balancing work and life, and just for people who are either all in, like when they're all in on their business, they're all in. And when they're all in on their, like family stuff comes up and then they're all in on family, and then business just drops off. And through that, they're not consistent. And I know emergencies come up and that kind of thing. But for my client who's just come on board, this has been going on for at least the last 6 to 8 months that I have known her closely, and probably I'd say longer, because I think we've been connected for a few years online before we ended up getting closer, and then she ended up working with me. This is what I'm trying to work out, and I apologize, I'm kind of thinking out my strategy here. You're kind of seeing the way I work and me trying to work out what's happening. I know this is talking about bravery, but this is being brave. It's working out, okay, what masterclass do I put out, and coming from a perspective, and this is what I help my clients do too, is coming from a perspective of, okay, how can I help people? And rather than what if they don't like this idea? What if nobody signs up? Well, it's like, if nobody signs up, then I'll try a different idea. Like I am just a little too comfortable with the failures that you need to do to get along to success, right? That's kind of what I'm working out at the moment. By the time this comes out, I will have probably done the masterclass. You can go back through my stuff to see what I ended up landing on in terms of, sort of like helping somebody, do the next brave thing where they've tried it and they haven't been consistent, whether that's social media, whether that's marketing, email marketing, whether it's hiring people in your team, all kinds of things that I can help with. But it'll probably end up coming down to some form of content or being on camera, I would suspect, which is kind of ironic since I started out in my marketing consulting and coaching career being a video coach. But anyway, so that's the brave things that I'm doing right now. It's like coming up with that new offer as a springboard to get people to try me out and get some results in those 30 days. Something my clients really struggle with is getting, sometimes like in the beginning stages, getting those initial results and then telling people about those results so that it can springboard into people going in the longer term programs. Yeah, I know people call them containers. I don't want to call it a container. I like to call it a program, because it's, we're working through something, we're working towards something, and that just language that works for me. That's the brave things I'm doing right now. How do I feel about that? When it comes to the podcast, I'm really excited because I have had this idea for years in the back of my mind. I have played around with a solo podcast in the past, and I weirdly find so funny. I was too scared to invite people onto my podcast last time round because I didn't think that I was good enough, and I was too scared of that rejection that I was going to get. Like bravery and fear of failure and fear of rejection just seem to really be along the same subject here. So if you have something on your mind that you want to be taking that brave new step in your business, whatever that is, whatever level you are, the thing I love about bravery is that even when you get to 7-8 figures, there's still brave steps you've got to do, because you have to hire teams and trust those teams and empower those teams. Like, that's a whole different set of skills. Can't wait to get there, by the way, but I'm back here. Not back here, but I'm at a different point. I'm at a different point. I'm okay with that. This is the problem with being a visionary. It's like I can see that part of my future, and I can nearly jump into it and be in that part of my future, even though that's not where I'm at in the 3D in reality right now. When I started doing the podcast last time, I played around with it. I think it was 2017. I did some solo episodes, which is quite normal, and I was too afraid to invite people. This time around, thanks to working with a coach, I've worked through so many things around my imposter syndrome and things like that. I mean, my coach kind of says that imposter syndrome doesn't really exist, but I can tell you that I had a tape in the back of my mind that was, I'm not good enough. And, other people can have a business, but I'm not good enough to have one. And that tape, whether it was actually being voiced in my head or whether it was just like this whole deep down belief for me. And you look at some of the actions I'd take. It's like I'd be trying to do something brave and trying to do something new in my business. And it would be like walking through mud up to my waist. And I'm like, I'm short, I'm 5'2". So mud up to my waist, it's huge for me. It's huge for anyone. That's a silly thing to say, but sorry, a weird thing to say. I'm not judging myself, but yeah, it's mud up to my waist is like, mud up to somebody else's like thighs or something probably. It was like trying to move through mud. Okay, and trying to walk through mud, and just everything was really hard. And then like sometimes like I'd be excited about the steps that I'm making and things like that, but then inevitably some sort of thoughts or script would come up that would be something along the lines of, this isn't really working, I'm not really, you're not really seeing results in the real world, you're wasting your time. What is that quote about doing the same thing and not getting different results? The definition of insanity. That's it, doing the same thing over and over again and not getting different results. And the thing is, when it comes to that, and especially with business, a lot of the time, like we have to have the vision and we have to have the faith before the results kind of really click in. And that's something that I've often struggled with because I'm such a visionary. I can see the vision. It's nearly like I'm living the vision right now, especially like when it comes to this podcast. It's like I see this being something amazing that is going to inspire thousands of people. Okay, like at some point, like I know there are going to be 1 million downloads. And as I say that, I'm also really scared because I'm like, oh, what if I pivot? And then this will be wrong. But either way, thankfully, the person I am now is someone who's like, okay, even if this doesn't work out, number one, I'm going to build relationships with amazing coaches. Number two, I'm going to learn a ton of skills, and then I'm going to build these skills into something else. Like I can always have better skills at interacting with people, having conversations. I hesitate on conversations because like these podcasts for me at the moment, I've got these very structured questions that I go through, and it'd be better if it was more of a conversation, but it's still a bit more of an interview. Whoops, I just forgot I'm like recording me on video as well. And I'm like looking down at the microphone instead of looking at the camera. This is how we roll. Okay, so I feel really excited because I am the person that I need to be to take this next step. And these steps that I put off for so long, like building this podcast, like I even knew what it was going to be called and how it was going to be focused on bravery, all that kind of thing. It's been years in the back of my mind. I thought in my head I would do this when I got to a certain income level, and straight up, I'm not at that income level. Okay. I thought, that's something I'm going to do when I hit the 6 figures. I have not hit the 6 figures, not like the whole 6 figures in a year thing, through my business. Like it just felt like the right time. Okay. I wanted to do this. I got sick of putting it off until it was the right time. And here it is, I'm doing it now. So I feel very excited about that. So that's the brave things that I'm doing in my business, this podcast, and developing a new sort of intensive offer so people can try me out, get some results in a shorter time frame, and really feel comfortable about investing with me at a higher level, or I can use those results, talk about them on social media a lot, and attract people to all of my offers. The biggest brave thing about that actually is me incorporating bravery into my business, because before it was all about launching and the 5-figure launch framework. And to me, I think bravery is a huge part of launching, right? However, it's really possible that with the bravery thing, I will be attracting people who are maybe earlier on in their business, and that perhaps the people who are into the 5-figure launch framework, maybe they don't need that bravery step. I'm not sure. What I am doing now is that I am being brave again and not overthinking it and not changing things and worrying about muddying up my niche and all that kind of stuff. I'm following my intuition. I know that this stuff about bravery is going to help people, and that one way or another, I'm going to create something that is going to help people get results, just because I've been doing this for over 10 years and have created a ton of results for myself and my clients already, and that I have faith that I am going to work out exactly what people respond to and what they want from me. That, and I am too stubborn and tenacious to just give up. Stubborn and tenacious probably mean the same thing, but I have always known I've wanted to have a business, and I wasn't quite sure in what. I'm just so stubborn. I'm not going to give up until I work out how this works somehow. Even if I end up on my deathbed in my 80s or whatever, going, look, I tried everything. That leads me into my next part, where I normally go back in time and talk to someone about what they were doing before they became a coach. Usually my guests have had other businesses before they became some form of coach, and I am no exception to this. I do admire people who are like, their first business is, I want to be a coach, and that's my first business. I haven't come across those people yet who haven't tried something else as some sort of endeavor to make money. And yeah, I find that interesting. I did mention before how I've always known that I wanted to have a business. And for anybody who doesn't know me, my parents built a very successful computer business in the late 80s, early 90s. And that was a huge impact on my formative years. So I was very young, but I helped out in the business. I was selling things sort of right before I was in double digits, that kind of thing, and selling these computers that people didn't even understand and that kind of thing. And they built a multi-million-dollar business, and it was so aligned with their passion and everything, they made it look easy. That's going to be a whole other podcast, I think, because that effect on me and how you'd think somebody with that kind of background, like I hear lots of people going, I didn't grow up in an entrepreneurial household and things like that, and that should have given me a leg up. But man, it actually, for whatever reason, just slowed me down even more, because if I didn't see the quick success that my parents had, I felt like I either had the wrong idea and I had to change, or I wasn't good enough and I was never going to make it. Which, when you start thinking those thoughts, it affects everything. Like, you don't put yourself out there, you don't really try and get yourself public relations or pitch podcasts and things like that when you're thinking along those lines. It's been my very slow trajectory. Some other quick things that you could know about me is that I tried to create businesses in my 20s and came up against feedback and ridicule from people and things like that for doing these things that to me were so natural. I think I'm going to put all of that early past stuff in another podcast. Where I can sort of dive in is around 2016, when I started a business that led me through progressive pivots to get to here. I think that might be the easiest. And in 2016, I dove in again, not my first go at a business, and I dove in to do a photography and video business, because photography and video were my passions. So why wouldn't I come in and create a business around them? And it's really interesting because I've actually helped other photographers with their marketing and things like that too. And what's really interesting is that most photographers and everything, they hate the marketing side, because the marketing and getting clients takes 80% of their time, and they spend about 20% of time doing the thing they love, which is photography or video. I thought that was going to be the answer, and for me, the photography side, it just wasn't the answer. I still do video work for clients. Like, I still have a service-based business as well as my coaching. The service-based business is all to do with marketing, and together I get to, keep my skills sharp. So I'm not just coaching on things I've seen and things like that. I actually am doing work for clients as well as for myself. So I still keep my skills sharp in a range of different industries, and I enjoy that. But I do enjoy doing the coaching better, especially now that I have discovered mindset stuff, the stuff that I held off on for so long. So I started in the photography and video side, got a couple of clients, found that I just hated all the hours spent editing and that kind of thing. I wanted the kind of photography I love to do is sort of like really artistic. I like to spend hours on things. When you're doing portraits for people, you've got to hammer them out quickly and that kind of thing. And the person I was at that time, so perfectionist, and yeah, it wasn't the right matchup for me at that time. I think if I was to turn around with who I am now, I could make that work, but I'm a different person. I don't have all that hang up with perfectionism, which is a whole other thing that has affected me on my path here. Other things that are going to be amazing solo posts for you guys if you can handle my rambling. Don't know how many times I've said and so far. I'll be getting in and editing most of that out. shouldn't bother you too much. So I started out at photography, and then I ended up pivoting into video coaching because I wanted to help people get on video. Because to grow my photography business and doing video for clients as well, I really realized early on, it's like, if I need people to trust me that they can get in front of a camera, I need to get in front of the camera first. I have to be the leader of my business. I have to be brave. And at this point in time, you may or may not get this. I don't know how well I'm coming on this podcast right now. These things are so much easier for me now, but at the time I was stuttering and stammering. I had a lot of fear getting on the camera, especially in 2016. It was a different time. The first time I ever did a Facebook Live, I was up all night the night before. Some people drink alcohol. I have medical stuff that means I don't tend to drink alcohol. It's kind of issues. However, for me, I just was up all night and had about 3 or 4 hours sleep. I did it at 6 o'clock in the morning because I still had to go to work that day. And yeah, it was it really wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but I decided to do it outside. And then weirdly, it was 6 o'clock in the morning and I was on the university campus and I thought it would be fine, but there was all these cars going past. And I was like, who's going to work this early in the morning? A couple of hours later, I was expecting. And then, I mentioned that on the podcast, and then everybody was roasting me in the comments going, yeah, people wake up early, but it was all good. And I, didn't take that to heart. I did a little bit, but it wasn't the worst thing in the world. You could have worse things as your first live experience. If I was recording a video, it would take me like 10 tries because I would stammer over my words, or I would do what I jokingly called what's the guy from Star Trek, the Captain Kirk edit? You know how he say a few words and then pause, trying to remember the next line and say a few words. Captain Kirk, Stardate 2217 or something like that, right? That was how I would do things. It took me a long time to just get way more comfortable. And I don't know if this is a whole Australian versus US thing. I find the people from the US, you guys are just so much better at just talking and that kind of thing versus most of the people I come across in Australia. We're not as eloquent or comfortable or, talking as much. Anyway, I pivoted to video coaching. I actually did a big launch as a video coach, which was not so successful. It was successful in that I attracted an initial audience. I got them interested, but what I found was that I wanted to help introverts like me, who I thought I was an introvert at the time. I wanted to help introverts with video because of how powerful it had been for me in my business and just how much confidence I had grown just through getting through that block. One of the things about getting on camera and doing these things, especially like anything brave really, but definitely getting on camera, is that the fight or flight response gets triggered because you are doing something outside of the norm, and part of our caveman lizard brain type thing wants us to stay in the cave, stay safe, wants us to stay part of society because being part of the group keeps us alive, right? From our prehistoric days, caveman days, right? If you were shunned out of society, you were most likely to die because you didn't have that support of the group. And that triggers, right? Even when we're on camera, that kind of thing, that fear of rejection can trigger the fight or flight response. And it can feel like a whole lion or cheetah or something is going to come out from behind the couch and eat you. That's how it feels. Also, the other thing I found is that going through that video stuff with people, we have a whole thing of people, they have major trauma that was caused in those first few years of life, right? We all have some version of this. And at the time, I didn't have the skills or the training to really be bumping into that trauma. But being on video just triggers that trauma, brings it up in some major ways for people, especially those who are more introverted. It's something I've always been fascinated with. And yeah, that was just something where I didn't feel I wanted to be talking people into getting on camera, facing those traumas when I wasn't a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a counselor or somebody trained with some of that stuff. What I know now and how to deal with those things and things like that is totally different because we're talking 2016, 2017, totally different situations and setups. So from video coaching, I then just pivoted into doing my marketing stuff, which I was already doing as day jobs and have been doing since 2011. Before I worked in marketing, I worked in IT, my other love. Obviously, my parents had a computer business. And while I don't actually code, I understand everything, can handle computers. If you've got a tech problem, I can probably sort it out most of the time, and I do a lot for my clients. And from that side of things, like while I was working in IT, I was often in project management, and I worked in organizations where we didn't have huge teams. And so while I was project managing, I was also doing all the communications and marketing and things around the particular project and helping people and usually training them in the software, all kinds of things that I was doing and not necessarily getting compensated for, but it was what I did to make the project successful. Then I transitioned into doing marketing, which is my other major at university, my other love. And it's been a lot more fun because there's a lot more creativity to it rather than working as a project manager. I often felt like the most creative thing I got to do was, where's this project at? Oh, it's 30% complete, which felt like, picking a number out of the sky. And it's somewhat subjective. There's a lot more to those stories and a lot more bravery involved in those shifts and things like that. But again, those are some things I don't want to dump my life story on you in a whole podcast, but I am here to talk about the brave things that I had to do. And so I guess I just needed you to know that, I started business, I've done some pivots, but through that time, I have helped over 100 clients locally here in Australia and around the world in a whole range of different industries because I had day jobs and service-based clients. And once I decided to just lean into the marketing and just make that my business in terms of making money, then that's kind of where things have really grown from there. And just in terms of bravery, I think like the bravest thing I had to do through all that time is just to keep going despite all the failures and the trying this and it didn't work and trying that and it didn't work. Something to be aware of is that at this time, I wasn't really deep into mindset stuff. Like I'd see people online talking about mindset and I was like, yeah, whatever. Look, I'm a marketing person. I've been doing marketing for years. Let me just do the marketing. But I have found for me that just having the marketing strategies and things like that just hasn't been enough. It's just always when it's paired with the right mindset, the times I've gone into launches where it's like, oh, I'm just going to try this and just have fun. Those are the times when I get the best success. Like that's when I created my own 5-figure 10K launch. I was booked solid for 6 months with service-based and coaching work, both of them. Many of those clients from that time still work with me 3+ years later, keep coming back for more services, sometimes more coaching and just, hey, Tiff, I've got questions. Can you help me with this? How does this work? That kind of thing. So that's just the brave things that I had to do through that time. It's just to keep trying despite the failures. Oh, and then hang on, why did you decide to transition into coaching? Okay, so the coaching has come about because I went from doing services and marketing consulting, but I found that just having the marketing strategies alone just weren't enough. And I've seen hundreds of strategies. I've done plenty, anywhere up to like 50 different strategies across different clients and things like that over the years. And the difference, somebody who has the same strategy, who then they have these thoughts of like, oh, this is going to be fun, let's try this out, that kind of thing, can be totally different to somebody who, oh, I've got this strategy, but I'll believe it when I see it. That's one of the things that really frustrates me, even in my service-based clients too. It's like, oh, I'll believe it when I see it. And that's, I have found, just not how I've managed to unlock results in my business, is that whole, and I mean, I think it's part of early business thing of like, oh, well, if it's meant to be and it's meant to work, then I'll see the results. However, the people who have the strong faith and the vision and are able to hold that faith and vision even when things are not happening in the real world, it's not happening as quickly as you would like. You put out that piece of content and you didn't have 100 people go, oh my God, that blew my mind. Right. That's where I found the difference needed to be for myself personally, and then for my clients. The ones who thought differently were the ones who got some of the best results. In fact, some of my most successful clients, Tracy and Jess, who are health coaches, who I helped to launch, they had this huge audience who they had been building up and really, providing them with a ton of free, valuable content and everything like that. Free little mini workout flows and all kinds of stuff. And they hadn't sold them anything yet. They didn't know how to sell them something. So we worked through the process of working out exactly what they were going to do And this is where I'm really happy about how things line up, because when it comes to Tracy and Jess, like not only was I their coach, but I was also really in line with their ideal client. Okay. Apart from the fact that I didn't have kids myself, I'm 40 plus at the time. I think when we started working, early 40s. Anyway, all the years meld into each other. Getting old, people. So, that 40 plus, usually they're just either, really busy career people and don't make time to work out, even though they want to, they know it's important, or they're busy with the kids, that kind of thing. And how they help them to come around with things they can do in short amounts of time to get lots of results. And they help with the mindset side. They were certified master neuro coaches is a huge part of the health stuff. And I actually ended up signing on to become one of their clients. And I've been a client of theirs for years. Not until I'd helped them launch their business and get that initial success and create something that they get to repeat. And they've grown their business and they have lots of clients now and all of that awesome stuff. And yeah, it was just like them, like they doubled their investment in me. We got them their first 4 clients. They had this engaged audience to start with. And that's kind of the section of people who I love to help and who get the most success out of my framework. But it's just really compare them to other clients who I've worked with who, it's a struggle to get them to even post regularly and things like that, because they are working through those blocks, and we all have them. I think this is something we all go through, and it's that whole working on the mindset side. And that's something that I've done with a couple of different coaches and my own self-coaching, and then I'm helping my clients more with that side of things. That's why the 5-figure launch framework has this whole thing around mindset and just training your brain to be okay with going to that next level. It's one thing to say that you're going to be brave and you get the excitement. It's like, I'm going to do this next thing. I'm going to launch the podcast. I'm going to post consistently. I'm going to do the 5-figure launch, or I'm going to pivot my business, whatever that next brave thing is. We get excited, and then that excitement carries us through for the first couple of weeks, and we take those steps. It's exciting, and then we're putting things out there, and then there can be this little voice in the back of your head that's like, nobody seems to be really interacting with this. Not sure it's going to work. We should stop now. Sometimes it can be that. Sometimes there can just be the voice of, like this looks like it might be harder than we thought. Maybe this isn't right for us. Maybe this isn't fully aligned. Oh, I've seen this. Maybe this isn't really fully aligned and we need to make some shifts. I've also done that one. Like I told you how I pivoted through my business. Those are the major pivots. There's been some minor pivots. There's the pivot of the ideal client, or better change my ideal client, better think and overthink that ideal client thing. That's why I told you before about what I'm doing, how I'm working on my offers, and I've got the 5-figure launch framework. And even though I've had a few people in my business go, it's just the money doesn't motivate me. Well, number one, you need money to have a business. You need to know those numbers. And I feel that, there's a part of me that's like, maybe you should change that. And there's another part of me that's just stubborn. That's like, no, this is an example of what's possible. And you can either use it to get the money, or you can use it to get clients and make impact. And I'm keeping it for now. I'm being stubborn just because the amount of times I have had those things where I was talking about before, like, maybe this isn't working. Maybe you should change things. And yeah, it's just that initial excitement gets you through those first couple of steps. And then you need something happens to shake your confidence. You talk to someone and they're like, oh, really? That's what you're doing? And, depending on who you are and the type of self-confidence you already have, that can shake you, that can cause you to start having thoughts that doubt. And when you have some of those thoughts that doubt yourself, then you start having feelings of stress and anxiety. Those feelings then affect the actions you take. So then maybe you don't put things out as often. Maybe you don't talk to strangers about what you're doing as much. Maybe you don't pitch to be on podcasts and things like that. And that affects then, when you're not taking those actions, that affects the results, which then confirms to your brain, hey, this isn't working. We need to change something. And that's where you need someone to come in at that point, because that initial excitement can only take you so far before something can come up to rock your confidence or rock how you feel or think about things, that then affects the actions. And then that's where something like my podcast comes in. For some of you, you might say, hey, I really want to work with you one-on-one, Tiff, or you might come across the amazing guests I have and want to work with one of them. Totally okay with that. This is where I talk about bravery, and then a huge part of that is handling failure. And so this is what I mean by, that initial excitement helps you for the first couple of weeks, and then something comes up. Sometimes it's not even those things. Sometimes all of a sudden other things become really important, like family stuff comes up, and it's like, oh, I better focus on that, drop the brave thing so I don't have to continue to be brave, put myself out there. It can be fear of rejection of being brave. Like there's so much here that I have struggled with my whole life. And this is why I'm really passionate about helping others. And, like a huge part of it can be handling that failure and being like, no, okay, like failure is just data. It's okay. Now I know something that doesn't work, or now I know how, like, I can tweak things and things like that. And then sometimes it can get to a place where it's like, okay, how much am I tweaking and that kind of thing. Even for me with my business and those different pivots, different launches I've done, it has taken multiple tries. Another reason why I work with people for 6 months for the launching thing is it gives us time and space, try some things out and work out what really works so that you come away with something that you can repeat and keep using to grow your business into the 6-7 figures. That is the idea. Okay, let's shift now into another question that I like to ask my guests is, have you ever been glad that you failed at something because you learned something super valuable? This is going to sound strange, but I am actually happy for all the failures that I have ever had in my business, just simply because they led me to this point. And every time I have failed or things have not gone as expected or planned, and that's what we all do in business, like we plan and then we execute, and then we look at, okay, how did things actually turn out versus the plan? And what do we want to keep? What do we want to adjust for next time to see if that makes a difference? And that's pretty much business. And then the hard part is not getting all up in your head about it and going, oh, well, that didn't work, we should just scrap it and walk away. Or, maybe it's because I wasn't fully aligned, or I really need my ideal client, or something like that. And something I've really learned recently is just about how my energy, the energetics haven't been aligned or on point. So what I mean by that, for anybody who doesn't get what I'm talking about when it comes to the energetics, and I just want to say that I'm not an expert at all the wording around this. This is just my actual experiences. And it's just, when like you are just so plugged into something and you've got the idea and you're so excited and you go out there with this energy of, yeah, let's see what happens. Okay. And you don't have the thoughts and the corresponding energy of, oh, what if this doesn't work out? And you're like, everything's tight and shaking and stuff like that. You go out with this, oh, let's just see what happens. Let's just see how this can work. And you have fun with it. Then, and you don't have those thoughts of, what if it doesn't work? What if I can't pay my rent? All that kind of stuff. Then that's usually when all of the opportunities open up and things happen. And it's like the universe responds to that energy as much as the particular words you say or the people you talk to and things like that. It's the kind of energy that allows you to show up as your most passionate, confident self. People get really inspired by, you're so passionate about what you're talking about. And that's when they can see, oh, wow, not only do you know your stuff, but you're so passionate about it, and you get people results because you tell them about the client results that you get. And then that's when people turn around and go, oh yeah, I want to work with her, And even if your offer isn't quite what they were looking for, a lot of the time they'll keep following you because they just have it in their mind of, oh, I like this person. Yeah, this looks like a good person to connect with and work with. And yeah, that's just where I wouldn't have learned these lessons without failing, without making the mistakes and the missteps. I wouldn't be who I am without them. So, I can't really imagine it any other way. But I learned things that were super valuable. Like when you work with a coach and they're like forcing something down your throat that you don't connect with, and all your thoughts are around the fear of it not working, then you're not going to get results. And that's why, like when I work with my own clients, I want to make sure we find something where they're actually sort of plugged into that space of, they are passionate and excited and confident in what they're about to do, even if they haven't done it before, but they aren't letting the little fear hold them back and that kind of thing. So it's just the real difference between working with different coaches and their approaches and things like that. not that I didn't learn things from that coach. I learned a lot of the strategy and a lot of the mindset stuff that I needed, but I just wasn't ready for the next levels at that point with that person. I'm definitely glad that I failed at something. It's going to sound weird, but it also allows me to help other people deal with failure. I mean, you can't have someone who just like they had their first business, like this never happens, but just say an exaggerated example. They go in with their first business and they're like, yeah, here's my first business. And they talk to some friends who recommend them to others and they get their first few clients and they're like, making 6 figures in 6 months. I have heard those stories, but usually those people, they tend to have amazing sales skills and they have years of sales skills built up or some things like that that have helped them. But if that had been my experience and I hadn't really failed at anything or had things not work out the way I wanted to, how could I turn around and help other people? So yeah, again, always glad about my learnings and things like that. Next question that I like to talk to people about is, what brave things do you have planned for the next 3 to 6 months? Okay, I talked already before about what I'm doing at the moment. And I think my brave things that I have planned for the next 3 to 6 months are just really around those things. It's really focusing on the podcast. My big goal is to impact 1,000 coaches with the podcast. And that doesn't mean 1,000 people paying me money. That's really looking at the number of downloads, the number of people who maybe post about it online and who comment, also people who I interview. And as part of like what I'm doing with bringing bravery into my business, I am going to be reaching out to people who are in my community and showcasing their stories of the brave things that they're doing so that we can inspire everyone. Yeah, that's just my main focus, as well as just working out this sort of other smaller offer for people to springboard into and balancing my business with my chronic pain. I've been talking about that a bit in my social media. Because of my chronic pain, has been one of the things that's held me back from growing my business for the longest time, because I had fears around what if I have a pain flare up and I can't deliver on time? I don't want to have too many clients in that situation and I don't want to let people down and all that kind of mind drama, which I have now really worked through over the last few years. Like, I don't want to lie, this is something I've been working on for years, especially as pain flare-ups increase and decrease at different times, right? And I don't know how long they're going to last for and that sort of thing. Another reason why it's really hard to grow your business when I had the thought that I'm not normal like everyone else. I can't grow a business like everyone else. That really held me back. Just even talking it out loud just bums me out. But the thing is, what's really interesting is that nobody can build a business like anybody else, because we're all unique individuals and everybody has their own needs and ways of working and different tasks that energize them and de-energize them, things like that. Like, for example, I do my content regularly, but I'm not the kind of person who would ever be able to, I don't think, would ever be able to do 3 months worth of content in one batch. Okay, I know some people can sit down and do 3 months, they can do 6 months, they plan out their whole 12-month calendar and things like that. I don't do that because I want room to move and change and shift a little bit, because I'm still working things out. And yes, most of my stuff, I have core things that I talk about and everything. Obviously, I've been doing this for 10 years. That side of thing is definitely locked in, but I like to be able to share things as things come up. I was talking to somebody the other day and things like that. Sure, I do my stuff about a week ahead. I used to be able to do it 3 or 6 weeks ahead, especially when I was doing video work. But now I just do a week ahead. That's what happened to me once I got into a chronic pain thing, and that's what I was able to do. So I also have someone on my team who helps me with that, because scheduling content, I can do it for clients and things, but the actual scheduling part just makes me, it's like nails on a chalkboard. Everything in my body just gets really tight and it's so boring. Okay. Just the actual like creating the content. The person who works for me, Aiko, go, if you're looking for someone, contact me, because she's always on the lookout for new clients and things like that, or she is at the moment at time of recording. Now I've put it in a podcast, so now it's going to be out there forever. She does the graphics for me, and I just really love her graphic design. We have a whole system set up that I set up where, I've got things in a Notion calendar, and then I say it's ready, and she goes in, creates an image based on the words I tell her to put in the image, and then she creates that and then schedules it all for me across all of the social medias except for TikTok and Pinterest. I don't do enough of that stuff. And actually, I'm not quite doing YouTube right now, except for obviously these podcasts are going to go up on their own YouTube channel. However, that's all stuff that we have done in the past, can do again in the future. Also, email list, all that kind of stuff. It's just, she's amazing. She's awesome. So what brave things do you have planned in the next 3 to 6 months? So those are the things, the brave things. It's managing, like it's growing the podcast and doing all these things, but in a way that doesn't stress me out and take on too much work. I do also do client service-based stuff, so that too has to be balanced. But in the last few years, I've really gotten much, much better at having dedicated time for work and dedicated time for not work, and being able to plan accordingly. The biggest source of all of my problems through my life was just trying to plan too much in a day, looking at the plan, feeling overwhelmed, having the thought that I can't fit it all in, I can't get it all done, it's too much. And because, Planner Tiff is an amazing robot person who just thinks she can do everything. And also the thought that other people would be doing this, why can't you? And then actual doer-Tiff didn't have the room for chronic pain flare-ups, or the fact that certain tasks take more energy. Other tasks, you're always going to have that block, and that you need to maybe do some journaling in order to get through the block so you can actually get started and things like that. And let me tell you, when you have the thoughts of, I can't get it all done, it's way too easy to then start procrastinating on the YouTube. And I never did Netflix during the day, but I would set myself up poorly for the rest of the day by staying up late watching Netflix, because I didn't want to face the following day, because this following day was anxiety inducing and overwhelming, which I found out recently is a planning problem. And it's not that I'm not organized enough or not doing enough, it's a planning problem. And the ability to understand how long things take and all that kind of stuff. And also it's that energy piece, right? There's just some things, like when you start paying attention, there's just some things that I do better at sometimes than others. So I don't know if you noticed, but I recorded this podcast in 2 parts. I started in the morning, which I think went really well. And then I'm now doing it in the afternoon, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's still the end of summertime. It's still hot here. I am hot. I'm rambling more, and I don't know which one's going to make for a better podcast. I guess we'll see. If you've gotten this far in the podcast, let me know. Do you prefer rambly Tiff, or do you prefer, in the morning on top of it Tiff? I don't know. But what's interesting is in the morning on top of it Tiff, she can't really write content or can't have content ideas. Content ideas happen in the afternoon. I know some people do their focus work between 10 and 12. I come up with my best creative ideas sometimes between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. Sometimes 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. Dinner time notwithstanding, sometimes that happens in there. So yeah, it's I have to have my initial creative ideas and the initial creative, start writing in that time. And then the following morning, that's when I have to actually go in and look at it in kind of editative mode, and with that less creative and rambly and more focused and, yep, here's what we've got to say, and go in editor mode. It's just really interesting learning that about myself, because it's if you don't know that kind of thing and you are forever putting create content in that 10 to 12 slot, and you don't even understand and realize how you work, then you're always going to procrastinate, put it off, not do it very well, and you've got to have a story around, oh, I'm not good at creating content, I'm not consistent. But it's actually maybe you just haven't found the right time of day, your right energy, all that kind of stuff. If you are interested in hearing more about my learnings on that, let me know. If you ever want to get on and chat to me about it, happy to talk to you, and you want to sort that out for yourself, be really happy to do that with clients and things like that. or I can point you towards some people who I learned this from as well. Particularly awesome for perfectionists too. Brave things that I'm working on. The other part of that question is like, what's the biggest challenge or obstacle in doing those brave things? And for me, the biggest challenge or obstacle for me, it'll be my mindset for sure. Although I have a coach who I work with, and that really helps me to stay on point and not unravel. Because the thing about doing something like a podcast is, like I said earlier, I can see the big dream and the big vision. I can feel it as if it's already here. And where I have often struggled is sometimes that time delay between me seeing it and feeling it and just being in it in my mind's eye, feeling like it's already here, and then the delay that happens in the real world. And putting my posts out there, and people are like, oh yeah, that's interesting. And some people have really clicked with me with the bravery stuff, and then other people, like, I don't know, like it hasn't quite clicked as much. And yeah, I think that will probably be my biggest challenge, is holding the vision and keeping creating the content, because I believe in it so much. And I'm just doing this for fun as much as anything, but it's also helping me to become better at what I do and to really talk out what I'm saying, and will help me create better content. Like, I've already had that just from the podcasts I've recorded already. And I can't remember if I said this, but this is actually my second time recording the solo podcast, because my first one, I spent an hour and got through the first 2 questions and went too deep. And I think I sort of said, hey, there's this story and I'm going to cover that in a future episode, things like that. So that's how I worked these things out. I'm not a perfectionist, but I definitely, there's just sometimes where you just know when you're creating something that I myself wouldn't want to listen to, and even allowing for beginner bias or just the beginner experience, right? It's like this can often be my problem too. And I don't know, you might recognize this in yourself if you're listening. As creative people, even as entrepreneurs, we are also creative. We create something from nothing. We can oftentimes see it so clearly in our mind's eye, and then we go to do it ourselves and it doesn't come out how we expected. I learned this when I was building my skills in photography and video, right? We get into these fields because we have a particular, like a discerning eye. We see things that we like, and then we want to go and create them too. But the problem is we don't necessarily have all of the skills together in order to create that. So it's like we try and then we fall far short of what we want to do. And then that can be a point where we say to ourselves, oh, well, no, I'm clearly not creative enough, or I'm not good enough at this. And then we give up. And that's a huge problem I see happening for business owners at different levels. I've even seen business owners who like grew their business, had a big team and everything, and then they didn't have the skills to be able to actually build that team, because it's a whole different set of skills that you use to get to a certain point as a solo operator, maybe with a couple of contractors. It's very different hiring your own team. And I talk about this from a perspective of someone who used to be a project manager, who got to hire her own teams and things like that in my day jobs. And then, I got into my own business, and I just like, I miss having a team. God, I can so use a team. It's like never going to need to be convinced to invest in people, with the exception of I just need a bit more income so that I can cover them, if that's my thing that I'm dealing with anyway. So the biggest challenge or obstacle, it's going to be my mind. And that's why I'm so passionate about coaching other people and everything too, because for years I thought, it was just another marketing strategy, and I saw all these mindset people and I was like, yeah, mindset. To me, I thought like mindset was the stuff that you get into when you hit your 6 figures so you can get to 7. I had that thought. Right. If only I had really known and really understood, but you can't go back and teach past Tiff anything, because she was also stubborn in her weird views too. So yeah, just that whole phase. And I think we all go through it. It's like, no, it's just another marketing strategy. No, I just need a better marketing strategy. I just need another one. And then like, because this is the other thing that has always confused me over the years, is like, you've got someone who has a marketing strategy that worked for them, and then they turn around and then they teach that. And that's the only thing they can teach, right? I've worked with that coach too. The one coach said to me, she said, oh, look, I don't know why it's not working for you. It's worked for me and my other clients. That was all she could say. I learned tons from her though, but also it really allowed me to turn around and say, no, I'm not a one size fits all coach. I don't just have one strategy. But then, I'd have a whole range of strategies to help my clients with, and we try one and we try another, and it still wasn't getting the result. And then as I learned more and more about mindset, I could see the mindset stuff holding them back. And things like putting so much on their to-do list. What is it? They start doing a launch, and then all of a sudden they get in a new service-based client, even though they're launching and trying to do coaching, right? Myself included. I have done this too. Please know that I'm not saying here that I'm a beacon. Like, I've learned from certain mistakes and things. Doesn't mean I'm not going to repeat them again. But it's just really interesting watching this from the outside and seeing people just do these things where it's not like they even say I'm not good enough or I'm worried about the launch. It's just this other thing came up and it's money now, so I'll focus on the money now. I had this a lot when I had my day job and trying to balance the day job with my business. And while I was doing that balance, when the day job stuff came up, because that was the immediate money that paid for things and everything in my business immediately, even though it was a low hourly rate, it was steady. I didn't have to go out and find new clients and things like that all the time. It would get prioritized and it would take up all of my energy, and I would allow it to do that. And then I would say, if I just didn't have the day job, I could grow my business. My business grew a little bit, right? But then when I gave up the day job, because it's like, okay, I just have to go all in on this business thing, then I found out very quickly that it was not the day job that was holding me back, right? It was actually my thoughts, because even though I got rid of the day job, now all of a sudden I still hadn't cleaned up all the mindset work, and I had all of these things holding me back, the same things holding me back, right? For, attracting clients, talking to people, doubting myself, and there was this whole new pressure on my business of I didn't want to keep dipping into the savings to keep my business running. And if I had to keep doing that, then that meant something about me and how good I am and my own self-worth and all these sorts of things that I have worked through in the last 2 years. We're going into year 3 of me being full-time in my business. I've been growing my business on the side since like 2016, 2017. So yeah, it's been a long, slow road of learnings for me, but that's why I feel very confident in helping people with these things, because I've gone through it all. So I think that's the biggest challenge or obstacle. What are your thoughts and feelings about that now? So I am really glad that I have a coach who I have invested in, who keeps me on track, who I can message at any time and say, I'm starting to have these thoughts come up again, because these are cycles of mine that have been running on repeat since the earliest years of my life. So, we're talking 3+ decades, coming up to probably 4 decades, probably, of these same things that I have done so that I can not feel uncomfortable, not feel anxious, and not feel the sting of rejection, which if you keep following that, you will struggle to grow your business. Please take this from someone who has struggle to grow their business while trying to avoid rejection and minimize fear and anxiety, right? Not that you have to have a ton of fear and anxiety to grow a business, but when you shift into that place where you are passionate and you are confident and you can maintain that energy level, and not from I've got to hustle through and maintain the energy, but it's just like, now I love my business. I wake up, I'm excited to work on it again. It is the business that I had in my dreams years ago when I started this thing. I do my tasks on time. I move my business forward. I celebrate my small wins. And still sometimes I have little thoughts that creep up like, nobody's buying anything yet. Or, that's not true actually. But I have those thoughts from time to time, although actually, in between recording these podcasts this morning, this afternoon, same day, I had, I just made a few $100s with a previous client doing more service-based work, and I'm going to turn around and do that after recording the rest of this thing. Let me just move on in the questions here. What impact will that make on your clients if it all works out? Where will you be if it all works out? That's right, because I want to impact 1,000 business owners with the podcast. And for me, what lights me up is just the idea that someone could listen to this turn around and be like, right, that's it, I'm going to go live. I mean, as it is, the people I've talked to about the podcast, it has this amazing effect of, here's the brave thing I'm doing. And then they get excited about the fact that they're doing brave things. And then they go and do more brave things. Even for me, it has changed me, because now I'm starting to share the brave things I'm doing in my business, which is creating this self-fulfilling prophecy of being a brave person who does brave things. And so now, like, I'm reaching out to people and inviting them to be guests on the podcast. I'm about to reach out to people to see if they want to collab on a reel about bravery. And yeah, it's just, I don't know, it might nearly be too good, because maybe nobody will want to work with me because I just think this is going to be so inspirational. But I am also here for those of you who enjoy that initial that initial excitement and then want to have the skills to actually keep that going once it starts to wear off, which is something that has taken me years to build. So what if it doesn't go according to plan? Is there a backup plan? Well, not exactly. No, actually, this time, every other time in my life when I have done something new in my business, I have had this whole underlying fear, like different muscles in my stomach would clench, and actually even my shoulders and arms muscles would clench. And there would just be this feeling that, oh, what if it doesn't work out? And, this can work out for everyone. Anybody else could do this, but you can't. Don't know, like, such not a useful thought at all. When that is your automatic programming and you don't even know to question it, you just go, oh, well, I just have to work harder. Like, that was my way to get through it. I'll just have to work harder. I'll just have to message more people and things like that. As opposed to what I'm doing now, which is, this time around, I don't have that feeling. I am acting from a place of I enjoying what I'm doing. I am passionate about this. I just know it's going to work. I have absolute certainty that it is going to work and that people are going to want to work with me based on listening to me talk about bravery, listening to me talk about marketing and mindset and just handling fears and things like that. I know that the right people will hear this and know that they want to work with me. Is there a backup plan? Well, only in as much as that I don't have like this solid backup plan in place, other than I know that whatever happens, I can handle it. I have skills and I can handle it. And not only that, I mean, like, I have people who keep working with me for 3 years and they keep coming back to me for more work, right? I have people who have signed up just in the last 2 weeks to work with me for coaching, to do this same thing that I am working through, the balancing work and life and not being all in on one or the other, and just being able to move their business forward. Because, if you want to attract coaching clients, you need to show up like a leader. And that means that you do need to be showing up on social media. Even if you don't have the clients yet, you need to be showing up as if you do. And those are people who I can help, plus the people who want to do the 5-figure launch and, build that kind of engine for their business. That's an example of what we can do together, but also on the other side of just the other parts of things that I know about that I can help with too. Which sounds like I'm muddying up my brand, but I don't care. I'm not overthinking it. This is where I'm at, and I feel confident about it, and I'm enjoying it. And the only backup plan is that I've been doing this for 10 years. I will always be able to help somebody solve a problem. I have so many skills, guys, so many skills. And I say this as someone if you're sitting there thinking that maybe you don't have any skills, I would encourage you to take a look at the skills that you have, because I would imagine you have a ton of skills yourself that you can help people with. So there's always a problem you can solve. And as long as you can solve a problem, then you can build a business. Okay. The final question is, what would you say to a listener who's about to do their next brave thing in their business, but they're hesitating or waiting for the right time? Here's the answers that I had planned for this part, because I like some other people's answers to this, and I kind of have my own. So first up, I really liked Eve's answer. Check her out in the podcast, episode 2, I believe, about checking in to see, like, is it really what you want to do? Is it actually aligned? Because maybe you're putting it off because it's not 100% aligned. And I really liked that point. So definitely check out that episode, or you can just like fast forward to the end to get that little bit. Then the other one, I think, was Beryl's answer, which is, I'd encourage you to be brave, take the leap, get support, whether that's accountability, a coach,
pick me, I believe she said, or an amazing coach on this podcast, join a course, that kind of thing. And then things that I want to just sort of say, just remember, like, number one, there's no such thing as a wrong decision. Okay. That's the one thing that we think. And this is the best part about business is like, even if you do something that's not quite right for you, you're going to learn a ton of skills. And then the next time you do it, you're going to do it that much faster. Okay, for example, in 2017, I was hired by a local nonprofit. I mean, I was already working for them, and I did a project for them where we taught local business owners how to go online. And this came out of all my interests and skills. And basically what I did was I built a membership of local business owners. I created 100 people to come in to that offering. We had government money to fund it, so they got to participate for free, but still them putting the time in to do the work. And, we came out with a ton of results and all that kind of stuff. But even though that didn't continue, it still allowed me to build all of these skills so I could turn around and do that again and again and again, faster each time. So there's no such thing as a wrong decision, especially when it comes to business, because you can just turn around and start talking to different people with a different offer. That's the fun part. The other thing I want to say is failure is just data. Okay, don't let it mean something about you. And everyone has the same amount of time. I used to hate hearing this. So when you say to yourself, I don't have time, you're really saying that's not a priority. And if you want help prioritizing these things for yourself, you can definitely hire me to help you with that kind of stuff. I mean, that's what I'm doing with my latest client. We are setting up a foundation. Before we do her launch, we're setting up a foundation of allowing her to find the time for building her business and finding that middle ground so she's not all in on the business, or when something else comes up like family, she doesn't drop everything. Like Nike says, just do it. I think that's what Beryl said. That was it. Like Nike says, just do it and you'll succeed or you'll learn and try again, right? You will succeed or you'll learn and then you try again. Okay. And then last thing I'll say is this little mantra that I think I love. I'm not sure. I'm kind of thinking about it a little bit, but this thing that I heard from Brooke Castillo from the Life Coach School, she has an amazing podcast. She is an 8-figure business owner or something. I think she's made it to at least 50 million and she's working to make it to 100 million as a life coach, right? And she talked about this idea of fail, success. Like that's what it takes to be successful. Is you fail, and then you succeed. And then you do something else and then you fail again, you fail, and then succeed on the next level. And I think that's why I'm so fascinated about the idea of bravery, sort of also fascinated with the idea of failure, but definitely more that bravery side. That was a really long-winded answer, but just do it. And share about it online and tag me in it so that I can cheer you on, okay? Thank you so much for listening. I apologize to the people who are watching on video. I haven't been looking at the camera. I'm like looking at my notes and things, but yeah, thank you for joining me and come and find me on Instagram. Thanks for listening to the Business Bravery podcast. Has this episode inspired you to do something brave? Even if it's only send a difficult email, please share it with me on Instagram or other social media channels. Feel free to tag me at Tiffany G Studios. That's TIFFANY. G for golf, STUDIOS, no spaces, no underscores, etc. Or you can use the hashtag Business Bravery podcast so that I can cheer you on and together we can inspire other coaches and course creators to do brave things in their business and life. Now, I'm Tiffany and I'll leave you with this one last thing. What's one brave thing you're going to do today? It doesn't have to be big. Even the smallest steps can create the most massive results. So again, feel free to share it with me either publicly or privately so that I can cheer you on. That's it from me. Until next time, bye for now.